Well, Hamas terrorists attacked many locations on that fateful day of the 7th of October. One of them was a music festival in Israel, the tribe of Nova Festival, in which many youngsters were taking part. Here's the horrors that were seen in that festival were unimaginable. More than 250 were murdered. Several were taken hostage. And here's the testimony of a survivor of the festival who was present when the attack happened. Here's what they're telling us about what transpired on that day. Take a listen.
Sirens blared, rockets launched. As hundreds fled for cover, little did the music fest goers know how the fest would turn into a graveyard. On 7th of October, fest attendees were abducted, assaulted and butchered. Over 250 massacred in music festival and several were held as captives by the Hamas group. Here the music fest survivor narrates the horror.
5 motorcycles with 10 terrorists surrounded the bus station for approximately 5 to 7 minutes, shooting at fleeing cars that are leaving the festival and taking position there. And the only thing they didn't do is enter the bunker to check if anybody's inside. And we heard them speak Arabic outside, and we heard them shoot all the time. And we were afraid to death, and we were also giving each other signs that if somebody comes in, we need to do something.
Narrating the horror, the survivors spoke about taking shelter from massive rocket barrage and how the Hamas group came armed on motorcycles while rockets were being launched.
There's this motorcycle with the shooter and cars trying to flee, and he's shooting at the cars. And he didn't see me. And I immediately identified him, and I went with my car towards him, planning to hit him, kick downing my engine, and I knew it's either I hit him or I die, or other people die, or somebody will die if I don't manage to hit him. And we managed.
The survivor says the attack that has devastated Israel and pushed the country into war has fundamentally changed him. The survivor's testament would echo among hundreds of thousands of Israelis who have borne the brunt of Hamas butchery.
Yeah, I was always a liberal Israeli person living in the bubble of Tel Aviv, all good, let's live all together, let's give them the land. Our soldiers don't need to be there to watch them. But we gave them Gaza. And we did, in my opinion today, a big mistake, because if we would have held on Gaza, this wouldn't have happened yesterday. And they wouldn't have rockets shooting at Tel Aviv.
At least 250 fest attendees were ambushed, while several others were assaulted, tortured and held captive. A music festival which no one thought would turn into a graveyard. Agency report, Republic TV.
And Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met in Jordan as U.S. officials dispersed throughout the region in reaction to the bloodshed that began with the Hamas terrorist strike on Israel on the 7th of October, the previous weekend. Here's a report.
A day after U.S. Secretary of State took stock of the situation in Israel,
we are heading, as you know, to Israel, and I'm going with a very simple and clear message on behalf of the President of the United States and on behalf of the American people. And that is that the United States has Israel's back. We have the back of the Israeli people. We have their back today. We'll have it tomorrow. We will have it every day.
Antony Blinken visited Jordan's capital to hold talks with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and King Abdullah on the situation in Gaza. During his meeting, Blinken mourned the loss of lives during war.
As Israel continues to respond to Hamas's devastating attacks, the United States will ensure that it has what it needs to defend its people. Secretary of Defense Austin was in Israel today, doing just that, working closely with the Israelis to make sure that we're providing them what they need and that we'll be able to do that on an ongoing basis. At the same time, we're in constant communication with Israeli officials and with multilateral and international organizations, humanitarian organizations, including the United Nations agencies, including the ICRC, to get aid to civilians in Gaza. As I said yesterday in Tel Aviv, Israel has the right, indeed it has the obligation, to defend its people and to try to ensure that Hamas can never.
Blinken also expressed gratitude to Abbas for his efforts to further calm the region. Blinken, in the meantime, urged Israel to take every possible precaution to protect civilians.
We recognize that many Palestinian families in Gaza are suffering through no fault of their own, and that Palestinian civilians have lost their lives. We mourn the loss of every innocent life, Israeli, Palestinian, Jew, Christian, Muslim, as well as civilians of every faith and every nationality who've been killed.
While paying back-to-back visits to Middle East nations including Jordan and Qatar, Blinken opened a second day of frantic Middle East diplomacy, seeking to avert an expanded regional conflict while pledging full support for Israel. Agency Report, Republic TV.